In the previous tutorial, I showed you the first couple of areas of our settings and talked about ways that you can save your battery life a little bit. So let's continue looking in the settings. I stopped at brightness and wallpaper in the previous setting, so let's pick up on picture frame. You can actually turn your iPad into a, although be it a very expensive one, digital picture frame. So this is what allows you to set your personal settings for making this or turning this into a picture frame. So if you look to the right, you can see you have different transition types. You can show each photo for a certain number of time. You can shuffle them, those kinds of things. So literally turns your iPad into a digital photo frame. Probably the most important setting or area of your settings is your General tab. Your General tab tells you all about your iPad, how much space you have left, lets you know if you've got a software update that you need to attend to. You can change your sounds in here, and you can also actually get to other areas of your settings. So for example, network, which we've already looked at. You can turn Bluetooth on and then connect your iPad to a Bluetooth keyboard or actually transfer files, those kinds of things using the Bluetooth settings. You can set your iTunes to sync over your wireless network if you have that available. And then there are some things we haven't talked about yet in this series of tutorials, but let's talk about this one real quick. This is Spotlight Search. And in our next tutorial, I'll be talking to you about Spotlight. So you can actually customize this a little bit. So you simply tap, and then it gives you the items that are available in that specific settings. And again, I'll explain how you can customize your Spotlight search when we go into the Spotlight. You can auto-lock your iPad, and if you notice, mine is set to never. My iPad is never out of my possession, so I don't like it to go to auto-lock. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, the auto-lock is the length of time before your lock screen comes on and you have to slide across to unlock it again. You can secure your iPad by using a passcode lock, and you can also, if you have a smart cover, you can say whether you want your iPad to be locked or unlocked when you have that cover on there. So some people say, okay, whenever I close my smart cover, I want it to automatically lock my iPad. And some people say, I don't want it to do that. So again, personal setting there. If your iPad is ever in the hands of kiddos, maybe your children or your students, you might want to set restrictions. And this is by app. So you might want some apps to not be available to certain users, and so that's what you would do, is turn restrictions on and then set those. On the iPad there is a lock switch, and it's just a little button. It's the one directly above your volume control, and that switch can either lock the rotation or mute your sound, and so you can change that in your settings. You can also turn on multitasking gestures, and you can see it even tells you what the multitasking gestures are. So if you wanted to use 4 fingers to swipe between open apps, or if you wanted to pinch to go to your home screen, then you would turn this on. You can also set your date and time, what keyboard you're using, those types of things in here. There is a gotcha in this general setting, and it's called the reset. This can be a great thing, but I just want to give you a little bit of a warning. If you say reset all settings, you don't lose any apps, but anything that you've set specifically in your settings will all go back to factory default. Might be a good thing if you're troubleshooting. Here's the one you want to stay away from unless you know exactly what you're doing, and that is erase all content and settings. This literally means turn my iPad into an iPad that's brand new out of the box. No additional apps, all settings are back to the original, not even a username and password is associated with it. So it literally sets everything back to the way it was before you set your iPad up. Be careful of that one. Then there are also some other settings that you can reset. Your network settings, keyboard, your home screen layout, location warnings. So just be aware that the reset literally means to change things back to the way they were, and then that one real gotcha, you could actually delete everything off your iPad and start from ground zero. The rest of these are going to be very specific, and so I would just encourage you to tap on the apps that you have installed. For example, I have Twitter. When I tap on that, it's going to tell me some things and let me change some things about that specific account. So pretty much everything else you see after the General tab is going to be a personal setting. It's going to be customized for you and you alone. If you're going to add email accounts or you're going to add contacts, that's where you're going to do it. So one thing I will add, sorry. If you go to your Safari settings, which all iPads come with Safari, that's the browser that is by default on there, you can set which search engine you want to use. But here is the one that I would recommend, the setting that I recommend you turn on. And by default, it's off. That is, always show the bookmarks bar in your web browser. When we look at the web browser on the iPad, I'll explain to you why I like that bookmarks bar on. So come into settings, go to Safari, and say, always show bookmarks bar. I think you'll really like that setting. So everything else in the settings is going to be personal choices that you make, but I do encourage you to come in here and look at each of these and see if there might be some things that you would change to make your iPad computing easier.